Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into this kind of strange but really cool story from the Bible. It's all about a construction project, a lost tool, and a miracle that just completely defies physics. And it really all boils down to a simple question.
Can something totally ordinary, even an accident, show us something profound? We're going to find out by digging into this story from 2 Kings, chapter 6.
All right, so to really get what's going on here, let's set the scene. We're talking mid-9th century BC in the northern kingdom of Israel. The king is a guy named Jehoram, and it's a time when prophets are major players on the public stage. And our main character, Elisha, is one of the biggest names out there. So the story is all about this group called the Sons of the Prophets. And no, that doesn't mean they were literally the prophets' kids. You should think of it more like a school or maybe a guild. It's a whole community of disciples who are living together and studying under a master prophet. And in this case, that's Elisha. Okay, so our story kicks off with what you'd call a good problem, you know? It's a problem that comes from success, from growth. Basically, they're running out of room. The prophets go to Elisha and they basically say, hey, this place is too straight for us. And that word straight in the original Hebrew, it just means too narrow, cramped. Their community was growing so fast that they had physically, literally, run out of space. But you gotta understand, this was way more than just a real estate problem. It was a sign that their whole mission was expanding. Their spiritual vision was getting bigger, and they knew they needed to build something for the future that their faith was creating. So, what do? Well, their solution is actually where things got really interesting, especially when you look at the leadership dynamic with Elisha. Okay, so their plan is super practical. They're like, let's just go down to the Jordan River where there's tons of wood and we'll each cut a beam to build a bigger place. Elisha's first response? Just a simple go. He gives them permission. But then one of the guys speaks up and asks for something more. He doesn't just want a blessing. He wants Elisha's presence. And that changes everything. Elisha's answer goes from go to I will go. And just like that, Elisha agrees to go with them. And this is such a key detail, you know? It shows that these huge spiritual moments, they don't always happen in a quiet room praying. Sometimes they happen right in the middle of getting your hands dirty, in the middle of actual physical work. All right, so they get to the Jordan, they start working, everything's going great. But then, in the middle of this totally ordinary day of work, things take a turn, a big turn, for one guy in particular. So picture this. One of the men is just swinging his axe, chopping down a tree, and then bam, the worst happens. The iron axe head just flies right off the handle and disappears into the river, and the guy completely panics, crying out, "Alas, master, for it was borrowed." And that one word, borrowed, that's the key to why this is such a huge deal. You have to put yourself back in their shoes, right? In the 9th century BC, iron tools weren't something you just pick up at the hardware store. They were incredibly valuable, super expensive, and a real pain to make. So for this guy, losing a borrowed axe head, it's a total financial nightmare. He's now on the hook for a debt he probably has zero way of repaying.
So how does Elisha handle this full-blown panic? Well, not how you might expect. There's no big dramatic prayer, no flashy show of power. His approach is, well, it's quiet, it's focused, and honestly, it's surprisingly practical.
He doesn't brush off the man's panic over what some people might call a small problem. Nope. His very first question is so simple but so telling. Where did it fall? It just goes to show you that the little details of our problems really do matter. So the man points out the spot, and then Elijah does something really simple. He just cuts a stick, tosses it in the water right there, and then the impossible happens. The heavy iron axe head just floats. It completely defies the laws of physics. He uses this totally normal object, a piece of wood, to kick off this absolutely supernatural event. Okay, so the miracle's done, right? The iron is floating. But wait, the story's not over. And honestly, this last little verse might just have the biggest lesson of the whole story. Elisha looks at the man and says, "Take it up." Now, just stop and think about that for a second. The miracle brought the axe head within his grasp, but the job wasn't finished. The miracle wasn't complete until the man himself actually did something. He had to reach out his own hand and take hold of the solution that was offered. It's amazing, right? This tiny story is just packed with these huge ideas. Like the fact that our small personal problems really do matter, or that just doing your work faithfully can be the perfect setup for a miracle. And maybe most importantly, that divine help often needs us to take that final step.
So in the end, what this whole story shows us is that divine power isn't just for these big, flashy, earth-shattering moments. It works right in the middle of our everyday lives, while we're just doing our jobs. And it answers the call of our personal crises when we actually bring them forward with a little bit of faith.
And that really leaves us with a question to chew on, doesn't it? What are the lost axe heads in our own lives? Those seemingly small, personal problems that just cause us so much stress. And maybe the bigger question is, where's the opportunity for us to mix a little bit of faith with our own willingness to just reach out and take action?